what is the purpose of this trip? Yeah, so I decided to take this trip because it's just kind of a little goal I set for myself a long time ago. I wanted to stay the night at a haunted hotel by myself, completely solo, and kind of like document the experience, make a little vlog out of it. I personally am a skeptic when it comes to anything supernatural, so I'm not planning on seeing anything spooky or ghostly when I go up there. But you know, I thought it'd be a cool little episode to personally see if the Jerome Grand Hotel is haunted. So I don't like to say supernatural necessarily. Anything that seems strange or out of the ordinary of, you know, normal reality, I'm labeling anomalistic or an anomaly. An anomaly being something strange or something we can't explain. So with that being said, I've had an interest with anomalistic phenomenon since I was a kid, probably. I remember kind of being like obsessive compulsive in a lot of ways, and kind of having a obsession with purity, I guess you could say, like an obsession with cleanliness. So like if anything, like if I went to a hospital and I walked around and then I got home, I would feel the need to like clean the bottom of my shoes because I didn't want to track anything from the hospital home. And on one level, I mean, that's pretty intelligent. You don't want to take germs or any infectious diseases from somewhere you know could have diseases and then bring it home where you live and infect your, you know, yourself and your family. But on the other hand, it's almost something beyond that, where you don't want to take like those vibes and then bring it into your house. So that's one instance, I guess, from my childhood that I can relate to this. Another incident too that happened was, I do remember being afraid of ghosts and aliens for a while. And so an example of this was, I remember for a couple of days I was afraid that my Lego set was haunted. And I thought this because I came home from like school or practice one day and the Lego set had been like rearranged or moved. And I remember, obviously, like I had been gone, so I didn't move it around. And then I asked my family and they said they didn't move it. So I was convinced that a ghost or some other supernatural being had to have moved around my Legos. So because I thought it was haunted, I didn't touch it like at all, because I didn't want to, I don't know, it's hard to, I guess, justify why I didn't want to make physical contact with the Legos after that, but I didn't want to contract like the ghostliness, I guess. So besides ghosts, I was also afraid of aliens for a long time. And, you know, there's probably more reason to be afraid of aliens than ghosts, logically speaking. I grew up in Tucson, but I spent a lot of time in Phoenix, traveling back and forth from my house to my grandparents' house. And I remember when I was a kid, there was a lot of like lights that were over Phoenix that people couldn't necessarily account for. So the one particular incident was 1997, like the Phoenix Lights incident that gained a lot of notoriety. And all the news outlets picked it up and they were all saying how there's UFOs over Phoenix. And then they consulted the Air Force, and the Air Force, they claimed it was like a training exercise, and then I think they kind of, I guess, retracted it or something, I don't know. But there was some miscommunication between the Air Force and like city officials or whatever. But anyway, you know, long story short, Phoenix was kind of known for aliens for a while there. And so as a kid, you know, I was afraid of a lot of things, and aliens was definitely something on the list there. And it didn't help that I was kind of at the epicenter of the hype, the alien hype at the time. You know, my dad tried to kind of comfort some of that anxiety because he was actually an Air Force pilot at the time, and he told me that the Phoenix Lights was caused by high altitude flares. And when I kind of dug into my own research later on, it definitely kind of corroborated what happened that night, I would say. So that's kind of what I believe nowadays. I think that's the most reasonable explanation. So anyway, and then so another thing as far as childhood goes was I grew up Catholic. I was raised Catholic. I went to Sunday school, and I remember that they taught me a lot of things about the Eucharist and transubstantiation. For those of you who don't know what transubstantiation is, it's basically the process of like the host, the body of Christ, and wine turning into the actual blood of Christ and his body. So Catholics believe that when you receive communion, you're actually receiving like Christ's flesh. You know, so that's like a difficult belief as a kid to kind of reconcile with, because you start to learn about science and you start to learn about facts about the world, and then you know you go to Sunday school and they teach you certain things that are outside of the realm of science, and you don't really know what to believe. I remember them also showing us footage of like the host wafer, like the communion wafer, actually bleeding like blood during mass, like it was captured on camera. And you know, I didn't really know what to believe at the time. And then they also showed me videos, well, I guess pictures of like crosses that remained completely intact, like unscathed after a natural disaster. So like a hurricane came through a town, ripped up the house, but the one thing that was left was the cross. And so they were just showing me, you know, this stuff to basically build up my belief in the religion as a whole, and my belief in miracles, essentially.
Further in it. And then the rest is up to me.
Alright, well, that was quite the adventure there. I'm glad I'm back at the pad. What's up, brah? This is my room. It should be quiet because people are sleeping. Here's the bathroom. So this is Operation Graveyard. Alright, let's do this. How's it going? Goodbye, sweet hotel. Not a soul around. I mean, it is Tuesday. It's not like it's a Friday night. But still. It's definitely a little lonely right now. Not seeing a single human being. Alright, so here we are at the pearly gates. Yeah, I really don't want to do this. God damn, that's bright. Alright. Jesus. Alright, so I'm here at the cemetery. I'm like blinded, I can't even see in front of me. But yeah, let's just check it out a little bit and come back to the car and call this thing. So let me make sure the camera's on. Alright, camera rolling. I keep turning my head just to see in front of me because my phone light's so bright. There's a little grave site. What we got here? Marujo. I know Marujo. It's definitely peaceful out here, that's for sure. Let's take a look at that angel one. Make sure I don't get lost. details on that. Alright, back in the car, safe and sound. I was able to face my fears a little bit back there. I initially did not want to get out of the car, but I parked near the entrance, and that kind of took some of the stress off of me. It's not so bad once you start walking around. I mean, there's no sounds really, just kind of insects and kind of howls of coyotes, but that's about it. The only thing I saw was a jackrabbit. That was the spookiest thing out there. Other than that, just a bunch of tombstones. But yeah, I mean, nothing really scary or anything. I would say, if anything, it's just interesting to kind of reflect on your own mortality and just the fact that you're going to die someday, and everyone you know is going to die someday. There's a lot of psychologists and philosophers that talk about terror management theory, which basically assumes the perspective that human nature is dedicated to not facing death, and you could spend your entire life trying to come to terms with death. And we basically undertake all of these projects to transcend death. So, leaving a legacy, a family, just carving out a name for yourself. These are all immortality projects in a way, at least according to those type of guys. But yeah, I mean, it's just it's pretty wild to think about, but I think it's important to think about. I mean, at the end of the day, dying is kind of what makes life so precious and important and valuable at the end of the day. Without death, life would not hold the same meaning that it does if you could live forever. I don't know. Hopefully I can find my way back pretty easy. So I did it. Spent the night by myself at the Jerome Grand Hotel. I got back and edited all the footage, hoping that there at least be some entertainment value as like a travel vlog, just showing you guys around the city of Jerome. I didn't think anything paranormal happened at the time. I didn't hear anything. I didn't see anything. But when I went back and started scrubbing through footage, I did notice a weird couple of frames in the cemetery by one of the tombstones. I'm not exactly sure what this is, but I'd like to see what you guys think. So let's check it out real quick. So what we have in the frame here is the tombstone labeled Marujo. There's a little statue in the middle here, and then on the left there's this big bush. And so I'll play it real quick. So it happens quickly, but you can see this kind of figure dart from the bush to the tombstone, and once it hits the tombstone it disappears. And I'll play it again for you a little bit slower. So yeah, as you can see, it begins to materialize, I guess, in front of the bush. It's hard to tell. And then it swoops in from that left hand side, and as soon as it hits the tombstone it disappears. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure what to make of this, but you guys can kind of make up your mind at home. Is this just a lens flare, or is this evidence of the paranormal?